Hi, I'm Vernon. In this video, we're going to talk about something most people over 60 feel, but rarely say out loud. Why relationships after 60 are just too hard. Not impossible, but harder than we expected. Love in your 60s isn't like it was at 30. By the time we reach this stage of life, we've lived through enough to carry entire chapters of our lives. Losses, routines, deeply ingrained ways of doing things. And even if the heart still longs for connection, it's slower to trust, harder to bend. People say it's never too late to fall in love, but they rarely speak about the weight we bring with us when we try. Today, I'll walk you through 4 hard truths that make dating and relationships after 60 more difficult than most are willing to admit. Some of it might sound familiar, some of it might surprise you, but all of it is real. If something here resonates, even quietly, I'd be grateful if you'd like, share, or subscribe. It's a small way to keep these kinds of honest talks alive and to help others who might need to hear them too. Now, let's take a deeper look at the first truth.
Truth 1. We carry more emotional weight than we realize. There was a quiet moment not long after I turned 67 when I caught myself hesitating before replying to a kind message from someone I'd just met. It wasn't what they said that gave me pause. It was what I heard beneath their words, my own doubts, echoes from past wounds, fears dressed as caution. You see, the older we get, the more invisible weight we carry into every connection. It's not just our memories, it's the meaning we've attached to them. The heart, after decades of loving and losing, becomes cautious, even when it still longs to be open. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And I've found that to be painfully true when it comes to love in later life. A tender gesture reminds us of a betrayal. A silence stirs up an old rejection. Even joy at times feels suspicious. I've learned this the hard way. After my second divorce, I thought I had processed it all, but healing doesn't follow a schedule. Sometimes what we call healing is just a tidy way of packing away the pain. It resurfaces when someone new steps into our life, asking for a space we thought was still ours alone. If this reflection is striking a chord with you, give this video a like. Not for me, for the thousands of others quietly navigating the same terrain. It helps them find this conversation too. What's the way forward then? I believe it starts with honesty with ourselves, naming the weight without shame, noticing the stories we tell ourselves before someone else even speaks, writing them down, watching them gently loosen. Relationships after 60 aren't hard just because of other people. Sometimes they're hard because of the echoes we haven't quieted yet. But there's strength in noticing, there's freedom in naming, and with time, even the heaviest truths can be held more lightly. So if you find yourself closing off when things start to feel real, know this: you're not broken, you're simply remembering. But memory doesn't have to control you. Take your time. Be kind to the person you've become. They've carried more than most will ever know. But the weight we carry isn't the only thing that holds us back. Sometimes it's what we expect from others, silently, unconsciously, that builds walls before love even has a chance to begin.
Truth 2. We expect others to understand us without truly showing who we are. Think of a garden that hasn't been tended in years. The soil remembers what once grew there, the roots, the rot, the seasons of neglect. And yet, when something new is planted, we expect it to flourish instantly, without accounting for what the earth has been through. Relationships after 60 often feel like that. We bring the soil of our experience, but also the expectations of how things should unfold, shaped by past lovers, missed chances, and silent longings. In my early 60s, I met someone who, by all accounts, was kind and generous, but I expected her to read me like a book I never let her open. I mistook compatibility for mind reading. When she didn't say things I wanted to hear, not because she was wrong, but because I never told her what mattered, I pulled away. Not because she failed me, but because my expectations had no room for her real self to show up. The philosopher Alain de Botton once said, "One of the great sources of sadness in romantic life is the belief that the ideal partner must intuit our needs." That belief doesn't fade with age. If anything, it deepens. We want to be understood without speaking. But intimacy isn't magic, it's architecture. And it's unfair to expect someone to meet needs we've never named aloud. So perhaps the question isn't, why are relationships so hard at this age? Perhaps it's, are we brave enough to reveal ourselves, not just hope to be discovered? Because love, real love, doesn't show up fully formed. It has to be built, plank by plank, truth by truth. And the older we get, the more deliberate we have to be about what we ask for and what we give in return. We must become, in a sense, both the architect and the foundation, designing the shape of connection while holding the weight of our shared vulnerability. In this, there is a quiet power, the awareness that we are no longer chasing fantasy, but shaping something real with careful hands. As Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And in love, perhaps the greatest gift we can offer is not to be guessed at, but to be known, openly and without performance. This shift from expecting to be understood to choosing to be seen is where the real work of intimacy begins. Still, even when we learn to be honest, to drop the old assumptions, another challenge remains. Not everyone arrives at this stage of life with the same hunger for growth or the same emotional readiness. One may be eager to build something lasting, while the other is simply looking to feel less alone. And that imbalance, subtle at first, can quietly unravel even the most promising connection. So let's talk about what happens when two people are walking at different paces toward the same idea of love.
Truth 3. We're not always ready at the same time or for the same reasons. Last month, I sat on the back patio with a few of my oldest friends, men I've known for over 4 decades. The sun was low, the coffee had long gone cold, and the conversation turned, as it often does now, to the subject of love,
Real love. Not the version we chased in our 20s, but the kind we're still trying to understand in our 60s and 70s. One of them, Robert, said something I won't forget. I want someone who sees me, but I'm not sure I'm in the headspace to be seen yet. And just like that, all of us fell silent. That's the thing about relationships at this age. One person may be seeking depth, the other simply comfort. One might be ready to grow together, while the other is still recovering from the past. And because we're older, we assume we've figured it all out. But readiness isn't measured in years, it's measured in willingness. There's a kind of grief that comes from mismatched timing. Two good people meeting in the wrong season of their lives, one giving more than the other can receive. And while no one means harm, the hurt is real. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." And in relationships, that truth cuts deep. Sometimes we only realize what we needed or failed to offer when it's already too late. So, if you've ever blamed yourself for why something didn't work out, or wondered why the other person didn't match your energy, pause. It may not have been about you. It may have been about timing. And if that's ever been your experience, I'd truly like to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments, not for attention, but because someone else might be quietly wrestling with the same thing, and your story could be exactly what they need to hear. And when we accept that, we can stop forcing things that aren't ready and start listening for what truly aligns. What I've come to believe, and I say this with great care, is that emotional readiness in later life is not about being fully healed or perfectly put together. It's about being aware of where you are, what you want, and what you're realistically able to give. For many of us over 60, that's a new kind of courage. The courage to say, I want connection, but I'm still learning how to show up for it. There's a quiet dignity in that kind of truth, and a deep compassion too, because when we stop expecting perfection from ourselves or others, we begin relating from a place of understanding, not performance. That's when love becomes less about avoiding pain and more about creating peace. For anyone out there hoping to start again, know this. It's not too late, but it will ask more of you. Not more energy necessarily, but more honesty, more patience, more kindness with your own limitations. That's what growth looks like in this chapter, and it's worth every ounce of effort. But timing isn't the only barrier. Sometimes it's the quiet fear that what we're building now won't last, and whether at this age it's still worth the risk at all. We begin to ask ourselves, if love is temporary, is it still meaningful? And if everything we build is fragile, is it worth laying the first brick? These are not questions of romance. They're questions of mortality, of legacy, of whether emotional investment still holds value in the twilight chapters of our lives. And that's exactly where we turn next. Truth 4. We fear the impermanence and wonder if love is still worth the risk. With time, we begin to sense a shift, not always sudden, but steady. We catch ourselves measuring the cost of beginning again, not in fear, but in awareness. How much of ourselves are we still willing to offer? How much space remains in our lives for something new to take root? This isn't cynicism, it's maturity. After a certain number of endings, love starts stops feeling like a leap and starts to feel like a choice, one that requires more quiet courage than youthful longing ever did. At this stage, many of us don't fear being alone. We've learned to live in our own company. What we fear sometimes is pouring ourselves into something that may not last and losing pieces of ourselves in the process. The late nights of building trust, the slow unraveling of our most guarded truths. What if it all disappears in a few years or months? What if we outlive it again? But maybe, just maybe, the value of love now isn't in how long it lasts, but in how fully we live while it's here. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." And perhaps the same can be said for love. While it is within your reach, while you still feel the tug toward connection, open yourself. Not recklessly, not blindly, but willingly, consciously. Because at this age, love isn't about forever. It's about presence, about showing up. It's about sharing morning coffee and quiet evenings and memories that only make sense because someone else was there to witness them. The impermanence is real, but so is the beauty. What if we stopped asking, "Will this last forever?" and started asking, "Will this matter right now?" That shift from permanence to presence could change everything. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest risk isn't falling in love again. The greatest risk is closing the door to something that still has the power to grow us.
So now, what love still asks of us after 60? So where does all of this leave us? Are relationships after 60 too hard? Maybe. But perhaps the better question is, are they worth it? What we've explored here isn't just a list of obstacles. It's a map of what love really asks of us at this age. Honesty, patience, flexibility, and the willingness to meet someone not with youthful naivete, but with seasoned grace. We carry more than we used to. We expect more than we admit. We show up unevenly. We fear what won't last. And yet, we still want to love and be loved. That longing is proof that time hasn't hardened us, it's deepened us. As Rainer Maria Rilke once said, "For one human being to love another, that is perhaps the most difficult of all our tasks, the work for which all other work is but preparation." If we choose to try again, we must do so with gentler hands and clearer eyes. We must stop measuring success by how long something lasts, and instead by how deeply it teaches us to stay open. So wherever you are on this path, just beginning, healing, hoping, or hesitating, remember, it's okay to be cautious, but don't let caution become a cage. If this video offered something of value, don't hesitate to leave a comment and share it with someone who might need it, or simply liked the video to help others find their way here. These conversations matter more than you think. Be gentle with your heart, and if someone kind comes knocking, let them in, even if only for a while. And I'm Vernon. Thanks for watching my video.